Hello, Collective. It's that time again. It's time for another exciting episode of Two Tones Twisted Tarot Tales. I'm your host and Twisted Tarot Tale Teller, Two Tone. This is the show where I deliver to you a twisted tarot tale on a public figure. So, hold on to your underwear and let's get started. Welcome back, Titans. So, I want to know, we all need to know, who is this Elliott Abrams? Says he's 75 years old, and Wikipedia right here. Let's see what Wikipedia says about Elliott Abrams. Elliott Abrams is an American politician and lawyer who has served in foreign policy positions for Presidents Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump. Abrams is considered to be a neoconservative. He is currently a senior fellow for Middle Eastern Studies at the Council on Foreign Relations. He served as the U.S. Special Representative for Venezuela from 2019 to 2021 and as the U.S. Special Representative for Iran from 2020 to 2021. His involvement in the Iran-Contra scandal during the Reagan administration led to his conviction in 1991 on 2 misdemeanor counts of unlawfully withholding information from Congress. He was later pardoned by President George H.W. Bush. During George Bush's first term, he served as Special Assistant to the President and Senior Director on the National Security Council for Near East and North African Affairs. At the start of Bush's second term, Abrams was promoted to be his Deputy National Security Advisor for Global Democracy Strategy, in charge of promoting Bush's strategy of advancing democracy abroad. In the Bush administration, Abrams was a supporter of the Iraq War. On January 25, 2019, he was appointed as Special Representative for Venezuela. On September 1, 2020, he was further appointed to concurrently serve as the U.S. Special Representative for Iran. Here's some background on Abrams. Sorry, guys. Elliott Abrams was born into a Jewish family in New York in 1948. His father was an immigration lawyer. Abrams attended the Little Red Schoolhouse in New York City, a private high school whose students at the time included the children of many of the city's notable left-wing activists and artists. Abrams' parents were Democrats. His first cousin is attorney Floyd Abrams. Abrams received his Bachelor of Arts from Harvard College in 1969, a master's degree in international relations from the London School of Economics in 1970, and his JD, which is Juris Doctorate, from Harvard Law School in 1973. He practiced law in New York in the summers before his father, and then at Breed, Abbott, and Morgan from 1973 to 1975, and with Werner, Lipfert, Bernhard, McPherson, and Hand from 1979 to 1981. Abrams worked as an assistant counsel on the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations in 1975, then worked as a staffer on Senator Henry Scoop Jackson's brief campaign for the 1976 Democratic Party presidential nomination. From 1977 through 1979, he served as special counsel and ultimately as chief of staff for the then new Senator Daniel Moynihan. Dissatisfaction with President Carter's foreign policy led Abrams to campaign for Ronald Reagan in the 1980 presidential election. Career: Assistant Secretary of State, 1980s. Abrams first came to national prominence when he served as Reagan's Assistant Secretary of State for Human Rights and Humanitarian Affairs in the early 1980s, and later as Assistant Secretary for Inter-American Affairs. His nomination to Assistant Secretary of State for Human Rights and Humanitarian Affairs was unanimously approved by the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on November 17, 1981. Abrams was Reagan's second choice for the position. His first nominee, Ernest W. Lefevre, had been rejected by the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on June 5, 1981. During his time in the post, Abrams clashed regularly with church groups and human rights organizations, including Human Rights Watch. According to an article in the Washington Post, in a 1984 appearance on the program Nightline, Abrams clashed with Aryeh Neyor, the executive director of Human Rights Watch, and with the leader of Amnesty International over the Reagan administration's foreign policies. They accused him of covering up atrocities committed by the military force of U.S.-backed governments, including those in El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala, and the rebel Contras in Nicaragua. Abrams accused critics of the Reagan administration's foreign policy towards Latin America of being un-American and unpatriotic. In an October 1981 memo, weeks prior to his confirmation in the Senate, Abrams asserted, "Human rights is at the core of our foreign policy." Critics say that Abrams and the Reagan administration misappropriated the term human rights, with Tamar Jacoby writing in 1986, "In a period that more or less coincided with Abrams' tenure as Assistant Secretary of State for Human Rights, the White House endeavored to appropriate the banner of human rights for itself to use it in battle not only against communist regimes, but also in a more defensive way against domestic opponents of its human rights policy." The Lawyers Committee, America's Watch, and Helsinki Watch wrote a report in 1985 charging that Abrams had developed and articulated a human rights ideology which complements and justifies administration policies and undermined the purpose of the Human Rights Bureau in the State Department. According to American University political science William M. Leogrand, communist governments were the worst human rights violators in the world, Abrams believed, so virtually anything done to prevent communists from coming to power or to overthrow them was justifiable on human rights grounds. This theory fit neatly into the Cold War presumptions that framed Reagan's foreign policy and allowed the administration to rationalize supporting murderous regimes so long as they were anti-communist. In practice, it was little different from Henry Kissinger's Realpolitik that discounted human rights issues entirely. Abrams was generally considered a skilled and influential bureaucrat in the Human Rights Bureau. Guatemala. As Assistant Secretary of State, Abrams advocated for aid to Guatemala under then dictator Efrain Rios Montt, erroneously stating in 1983 that his reign had brought considerable progress on human rights. Rios Montt came to power via a coup in 1982, overcoming the forces of General Fernando Romeo Lucas Garcia. 30 years later, Rios Montt was found guilty of overseeing a campaign of mass murder and torture of indigenous people, genocide in Guatemala. Rios Montt, who claimed he had no operational control of the forces involved, was convicted of genocide against the Maya Ixtli population. El Salvador. Abrams frequently defended the human rights record of the El Salvador government and attacked human rights groups as communist sympathizers when they criticized the El Salvador government. In early 1982, when reports of the El Mozote massacre of hundreds of civilians by the military in El Salvador began appearing in U.S. media, Abrams told a Senate committee that the reported number of deaths at El Mozote was not credible. reasoning that the reported number of deaths was greater than the likely population and that there were survivors. He said that it appears to be an incident that is at least being significantly misused, at the very best, by the guerrillas. The massacre had come at a time when the Reagan administration was attempting to bolster the human rights image of the Salvadorian military. Abrams implied that reports of a massacre were simply FMLN propaganda and denounced U.S. investigative reports of the massacre as misleading. In March 1993, the Salvadorian Truth Commission reported that over 500 civilians were deliberately and systematically executed in El Mozote in December 1981 by forces affiliated with the Salvadorian government. A 1992 Human Rights Watch report criticized Abrams for downplaying the massacre. Also in 1993, documentation emerged suggesting that some Reagan administration officials could have known about El Mozote and other human rights violations from the beginning. However, in July 1993, an investigation commissioned by Clinton Secretary of State Warren Christopher into the State Department's activities and conduct with regard to human rights in El Salvador during the Reagan years found that, despite U.S. funding of the Salvadorian government that committed the massacre at El Mozote, individual U.S. personnel performed credibly and occasionally with personal bravery in advancing human rights in El Salvador. Abrams said in 2001 that Washington's policy in El Salvador was a fabulous achievement. In 2019, he said that the fabulous achievement was that El Salvador had been a democracy. In the 1998 interview, Abrams remarked, "While it was important to us to promote the cause of human rights in Central America, it was more important to prevent a communist takeover in El Salvador." Nicaragua. When Congress shut down funding for the Contras' efforts to overthrow Nicaragua's Sandinista government with the 1982 Boland Amendment, members of the Reagan administration began looking for other avenues for funding the group. Congress opened a couple of such avenues when it modified the Boland Amendment for fiscal year 1986 by approving $27 million in direct aid to the Contras and allowing the administration to legally solicit funds for the Contras for foreign governments. Neither the direct aid nor any foreign contributions could be used to purchase weapons. Guided by the new provisions of the modified Boland Amendment, Abrams flew to London in August 1986 and met secretly with Bruneian Defense Minister General Ibnu to solicit a $10 million contribution from the Sultan of Brunei. Ultimately, the Contras never received this money because a clerical error in Oliver North's office, a mistyped account number, sent the Bruneian money to the wrong Swiss bank account. Iran-Contra affair and convictions. In October 1986, a plane flown by Eugene Hassenfuss carrying military equipment intended for the Contras, a right-wing rebel group fighting against the socialist Sandinista government of Nicaragua, was shot down over Nicaragua. The Reagan administration publicly denied that Hassenfuss sought to arm the Contras as part of a U.S. government mission. However, the State Department was centrally involved in the covert plan to fund the Contras, which violated congressional legislation. In congressional testimony in October 1986, Abrams repeatedly and categorically denied that the U.S. government was involved in arming the Contras. However, at the time, Abrams knew that Oliver North was encouraging, coordinating, and directing the activities of the Contra resupply operation, and that North was in contact with the private citizens who were behind the lethal resupply fights. During investigation of the Iran-Contra affair, Lawrence Walsh, the independent counsel tasked with investigating the case, prepared multiple felony counts against Abrams. In 1991, Abrams admitted that he knew more than he acknowledged in his congressional testimony, cooperated with Walsh, and entered into a plea agreement in which he pleaded guilty. to 2 misdemeanor counts of withholding information from Congress. For failing to cooperate, he would have faced felony charges of perjury over his congressional testimony. He was sentenced excuse me, to a $50 fine, probation for 2 years, and 100 hours of community service. Abrams was pardoned by President George H.W. Bush in December 1992. In 1997, Abrams was publicly sanctioned by the District of Columbia Bar for giving false testimony to Congress about the Iran-Contra affair. Although several of the court's judges recommended disbarment, the court ultimately declined to disbar Abrams over questions related to the effect of Abrams' presidential pardon for his prior criminal conduct. Bush administration. President George W. Bush appointed Abrams to the post of Special Assistant to the President and Senior Director of Democracy, Human Rights, and International Operations at the National Security Council on June 25, 2001. Abrams was appointed Special Assistant to the President and the NSC's Senior Director for Near East and North African Affairs on December 2, 2002. Human rights groups and commentators expressed disquiet over his White House appointment, owing to his disreputable conduct and conviction in the Iran-Contra affair investigation and his role in overseeing the Reagan administration's foreign policy in Latin America. The Observer wrote that Abrams had advanced knowledge of and gave a nod to the Venezuelan coup attempt of 2002 against Hugo Chavez. The Intercept has reported that Abrams had a key role in disrupting a peace plan proposed by Iran right after the U.S. invasion to Iraq in 2003. Abrams' office received this plan by fax. They should have passed the plan to Condoleezza Rice, but she never saw it. Later, Abrams' spokesperson was asked about the plan, and he said he had no memory of any such fax. On February 2, 2005, Bush appointed Abrams Deputy National Security Advisor for Global Democracy Strategy, where he served until the end of his administration on January 20, 2009. Abrams accompanied Condoleezza Rice as a primary advisor on her visits to the Middle East in late July 2006, in the course of discussions relating to the 2006 Israel-Lebanon conflict. Post-Bush administration. On May 16, 2016, Abrams wrote a historical piece in the Weekly Standard, predicting that Donald Trump would fail colossally in the 2016 election, to which he drew parallels with the 1972 election. On December 23, 2016, Abrams, a strong supporter of Israel, criticized Barack Obama for undermining Israel's elected government, prevent its action against Iran's nuclear weapons program, and create as much daylight as possible between the United States and Israel. Abrams condemned Obama's decision not to block a UN resolution criticizing Israel's settlement building in the occupied Palestinian territories. In February 2017, it was reported that Abrams was Secretary of State Rex Tillerson's first pick for Deputy Secretary of State, but that Tillerson was overruled by Trump. Trump aides were supportive of Abrams, but Trump opposed him because of Abrams' opposition during the campaign. That's why Trump didn't like him. Abrams is a senior fellow for the Middle Eastern Studies of the Council on Foreign Relations. Additionally, he holds positions on the Committee for Peace and Security in the Gulf, Center for Security Policy and National Secretary Advisory Council, Committee for Free Lebanon, and the Project for the New American Century. There it is, guys, PNAC, Project for a New American Century. He is a member of the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Council and maintained a CFR blog called Pressure Points about U.S. foreign policy and human rights. He was on the faculty of Georgetown University. Trump administration. On January 25th, 2019, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo appointed Abrams as the United States Special Representative for Venezuela. This came 2 days after American recognition of Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido as president, thus advocating for regime change in Venezuela. Abrams' career and record on foreign policy was questioned by some opposition members in Congress. For example, in February 2019, Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota questioned whether Abrams was the correct choice for such a role because of his conviction of lying to Congress about his role in the Iran-Contra affair and his historical support for previous instances of right-wing regime change in Central and South America in the 1970s and 1980s. Omar particularly criticized Abrams' description of the Reagan administration's record in El Salvador as one of a fabulous achievement. In light of the El Mozote massacre, a mass killing of over 800 Salvadorian civilians carried out by U.S.-backed and trained death squads. Upon the resignation of Brian Hook, Abrams was selected to succeed him as United States Special Representative for Iran. Both positions were merged into the United States Special Representative for Iran and Venezuela as of September 1st, 2020. Biden administration. On July 3rd, 2023, Abrams was nominated to the U.S. Advisory Committee on Public Diplomacy by President Biden. He still needs to be confirmed by the Senate before serving on the commission. Political views. Abrams is a neoconservative and was one of the Bush administration's intellectual architects of the Iraq War. Abrams is also pro-Israel. Abrams originally opposed Trump's candidacy for president, writing an op-ed in the Weekly Standard titled, "When You Can't Stand Your Candidate." Abrams supported Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio during the Republican primaries for the 2016 presidential election. After this time working in the Trump administration, he confirmed that he has continued to believe that Donald Trump was unfit to be president. He agreed with Senator Mitch McConnell's assessment that Trump provoked the January 6th United States Capitol attack. Personal life. Through Senator Moynihan, Abrams was introduced to Rachel Decter, the stepdaughter of Moynihan's friend Norman Podhoretz, editor of Commentary. They were married from 1980 until her death in June 2013. He has two sons, Jacob and Joseph, and one daughter, Sarah. Books. He's got books. So in the government category, Tested by Zion, the Bush administration and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Democracy, How Direct? Views from the Founding Era and the Polling Era. Abrams, Elliott, Johnson, James Turner, Close Calls, Intervention, Terrorism, Missile Defense, and Just War Today. Ethics and Public Policy, whatever. Abrams, Elliott, Kagan, Donald. Honor Among Nations, Intangible Interests and Foreign Policy. Security and Sacrifice, Isolation, Intervention, and American Foreign Policy. Shield and Sword, Neutrality and Engagement in American Foreign Policy. Undue Process, a story of how political differences are turned into crimes. Religion. He's got books on religion. The Influence of Faith. Abrams, Elliott, Dallin, David. Secularism, Spirituality, and the Future of American Jewry. Faith or Fear, How Jews Can Survive in a Christian America. All right, guys, so this was a pretty thorough explanation of who this horrible guy, Elliott Abrams, is, okay? We got some headlines we're going to get to in a minute, but this is what he looks like, okay? Elliott Abrams looks like this guy, okay? And he kind of reminds me of this guy right here. Anybody know who this guy is? Look at his eyebrows. Look at his eyebrows. Look at that. Look at his eyebrows, right? It sort of matches his eyebrows. Look at that. Look at those evil Luciferian eyebrows. Look at that. This is a Vogon. This is one of the most dreaded things in space. And Elliott Abrams really reminds me of that. Okay? So in a minute, we're gonna read these headlines. Okay, here's the headlines. The Guardian: Biden to nominate Elliott Abrams, who lied over Iran-Contra to key panel. President's pick for Bipartisan Public Diplomacy Commission 75, convicted of unlawfully withholding information from Congress. Mother Jones: Why has Joe Biden just rewarded a guy who supported murderous war criminals? The White House has appointed Elliott Abrams to a Bipartisan Public Diplomacy Commission. Jacobin: The nomination of Elliott Abrams is a stain on Joe Biden's human rights record. I would also add his entire presidency. Elliott Abrams is one of America's worst living human rights abusers. That the Biden administration would nominate him to anything other than dog shit eater is amazing. New York Magazine: Why is the Biden administration rewarding Elliott Abrams? Elliott Abrams may be a veteran diplomat, but his record also showcases the worst of American foreign policy. The Nation: Henry Kissinger, Elliott Abrams, and the rot of American foreign policy. The myth of the mafia, immortalized in countless gangster movies, is that they protect their own. As the legend goes, once you're fully in, you get to do any fucking thing you want, including ruin everything for everybody. Esquire: Biden plans to appoint Elliott Abrams to Advisory Commission on Public Diplomacy. This guy has been gum on the shoe of American foreign policy ever since the evil Ronald Reagan administration. Democracy Now! Biden nominates Elliott Abrams, death squad backer, convicted of lying to Congress, to government commission. President Biden has nominated Elliott Abrams to the Bipartisan U.S. Advisory Commission on Public Diplomacy. Elliott Abrams was convicted a long time ago and should be not just in prison, but buried underneath it. Progressive International: Signed, Elliott Abrams is a war criminal. Sack him now. The worldwide petition to ban Elliott Abrams from public office. WSWS: Biden taps Elliott Abrams, champion of death squads, for U.S. diplomacy panel. Abrams is one of the most loathsome figures in the U.S. foreign policy establishment, personifying the homicidal violence, thuggishness, and filthy, disgusting fuckery. CNN: Biden nominates controversial former Trump appointee to Public Diplomacy Commission. President Joe Biden announced Monday his intention to nominate a former appointee under former President Donald Trump with a controversial piece of shit on his face and in his eyebrows. All right, guys, so look, it's time to do a twisted tarot tale on this horrible Vogon monster, Elliott Abrams. Tarot in Wonderland deck, come to my hand. Haha, yeah. All right, guys, I've already shuffled this 400 times off camera. I'll shuffle it again on camera. I'm gonna cut it, and we're gonna find out more about this rat-faced bastard, Elliott Abrams. He's the worst kind of Elliott. He's not like the good Elliott from the movie E.T. Okay, universe, let us know, who is this Elliott Abrams? Let us know anything you want us to know about this Elliott Abrams. Whoa, right away. See that? Okay. This landed on the table like this. Wow, that is the Seven of Wands. He's in a fight. He is in a fight right now. He's in a fighting mood. He's fighting. He's fighting against people who are trying to stop him, and the whole world should be trying to stop him. Let's make sure that stays there. Okay. The next card landed on the laptop like this. I wonder what's gonna happen. Ha ha ha. Let's see. Oh wow, look at that. That's the Two of Cups. This is sort of like a lesser version of the Lovers. So this is like a synchronization with someone or even with yourself. And you know, in the past, you know, I've kind of considered this guy right here in this deck, the Mad Hatter, as Trump. And this guy right here, the March Hare, as William Barr. But I'm going to tell you, if you look closely at this guy's face, he looks a little bit like Elliott Abrams. So I wonder what's going on here. And it landed upside down. So let's put that right there for now. And let's look at the bottom card. The Queen of Wands for the bottom card of those two cards right there. Okay, universe, what else you want us to know about Elliott Abrams? Whoa. Again, like two just came just dumping out and they landed like this. So the first one is the Eight of Swords. So this is pretty interesting. So somebody is sort of trapped. They're bound. And then the other one that came out at the same time is the Three of Cups. So that's sort of like the party. That's like the fun party card right there. I wish that I could get it to focus. But that's like the fun party card right there. Three of Cups. I hope that the lighting is good. It's hard to get the lighting good on my situation here. Okay. And what's the bottom card for those two cards? The Page of Cups. Wow. Okay, universe, what else do you want to let us know about horrible, evil eyebrowed Elliott Abrams? Wow. Was that two again? I think that was two again. Or was it just one? Oh, it was just one. It landed like this. Oh, Four of Swords. That's sort of the rest card. Let's see. That's interesting. And what's the bottom card for that one? That is the Two of Pentacles. Now, what I was thinking is adding a mystery card, but you know what? Maybe I'll try to do that with the next thing. I'm not sure. Okay, universe, what else do you want us to know about Elliott Abrams? Whoa. Whoa. It landed like this. And it's the Wheel of Fortune. Wow. Elliott Abrams gets to have a Wheel of Fortune there. Hope I can get that to stay up there. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards there. Now, this is the bottom card for the whole reading. Ooh, that's the Two of Swords. Wish I can get that in there better. Let's see. Can I, anything? There we go. Is that better? The Two of Swords. Look at that. That's the bottom card for Elliott Abrams. Okay, so now we need to read the descriptions of these cards. Tarot and Wonderland book, come to my hand. Haha, yeah. So now we're gonna find out what's going on here. So the first card out for Elliott Abrams is the Seven of Wands. Trying to get a good angle there. Yeah, that's him fighting. He likes to fight. Let's see. In a reading, this card describes a situation where you must take a stand against what feels like incredible odds. As the chaos swirls around you, you keep your balance and your head by staying true to your ideals and fighting for what is right. Evil shit. Just as Alice wakes before we learn the outcome of her fight, this card does not guarantee victory, Elliott Abrams. The important thing is to defend the truth as you see it in an evil way. That matters more than winning, Elliott. Hold tight to your evil convictions, tap into your deepest reserves of cowardness, and face all comers without integrity. Keywords: defending, protecting, valor, courage, standing up for beliefs, bravery, resolve, taking action. The next card for Elliott Abrams is the Two of Cups. Look at that. I bet you that March Hare is William Barr. I think William Barr has something to do with all this. But it could be that Elliott Abrams is the March Hare and this is Joe Biden. Wouldn't that be a trip, huh? In a reading, this card marks the beginning of a possible intense and long-term relationship. Maybe it is Biden. It's common to assume this means a romantic relationship, but it can be any sort. Keep in mind, this card acknowledges the potential of such a relationship. It does not guarantee it. If you've ever met someone that you just clicked with, then you understand exactly what this card means. It's that little spark of excitement when some part of your soul recognizes a kindred spirit. Just because there is that connection doesn't mean it will blossom into something more, but there is definitely something worth investigating. The relationship doesn't have to be with another individual. It can be with a group, a new interest, a skill, an author, or even a part of yourself, hairy eyebrow Elliott Abrams. Keywords: union, partnership, connection, falling in love, love at first sight, harmony, love, feeling in love, kindred spirit, attraction, and romance. But the problem is, it's reversed. So I need to know what the reversed reading is for this card. So I have to get the other book. How to Read Tarot, Come to My Hand. Haha, yeah, okay. So hopefully after I find this card, I can put this book back with that trick. So the Two of Cups reversed would be, fortunately, this card has such a vibration of harmony that its reversed position isn't much different from the upright one. It can suggest delays or that the relationship may have to be kept a secret for some reason. Yeah, I think that it's Elliott Abrams and Joe Biden, and they're having a secret relationship because Joe doesn't want anybody to know that he's it's too late now, but I mean, Joe's a fool. This is all bullshit, and it just shows you that there's really only one party. It's this weird neocon shit sprinkled with neoliberalism. All right, so now I'm gonna try and put this book back, okay? How to Read Tarot book. Go back to where you came from. Oh, I wonder what that looked like. Look, it hit some of these cards on the way. It knocked this card down, which was the bottom card, and it revealed this card, the Hanged Man. That's interesting, huh? I wonder what that means. Okay, so let's see. Let's find out the next card. So Elliott Abrams's next card is the Eight of Swords. Look at that. Bound. Yeah. In a reading, this card describes a very precarious situation. No matter how you came to be in this position, getting out is going to be a challenge, Elliott Abrams. You have some options. First, you can wait to be rescued by the devil, although there is no guarantee how long that could take, what form it could take, or even if it will ever arrive. The other route means that you take responsibility and rescue yourself, Elliott Abrams. Swords are the suit of intelligence, so be smart like Alice. Pay close attention to your surroundings. Rely on what you already know. Be open to new ideas. Think outside the box and take advantage of any opportunities like death squads. Keep your head, use your brain, and know that you can find a solution to all the peaceful situations out there that need to be destroyed by you. Keywords: feeling trapped. You should feel trapped, evil eyebrows. Restricted. You should be in jail. Dangerous situation. I hope you don't survive it, Elliott Abrams. Limited options. I hope you have no options. Helplessness. You don't deserve help. Complex problems. The next card for horrible Elliott Abrams is the Three of Cups. That's sort of like a joyous jubilee party, drinking party there, like Sex in the City or something, right? Wow, this is a long one, guys, okay? In a reading, this card is the moment when you and your people, even though there are three in the image, it really can be any number, create an upward spiral of awesomeness. You all feel really good and confident and think that each other is really fabulous. You feel that shared energy, creating more. It's an exciting place to be, and you can create some good things while in that space. That level of energy cannot be maintained long term, so enjoy it while you can, Elliott. While the original reference for the phrase much of muchness is something like the American six of one, half a dozen of the other. Thanks to certain movies, that idea has evolved, just like tarot is always evolving and sacred texts are always generative, to mean something inherently wonderful about a person. Losing one's muchness is a sad thing. In this card, everyone is celebrating their own and their friends' muchness, and as a result, all the muchness grows more robust. Keywords: friendship, family, casual parties, joy, fun, abandoned, abundance, celebration, connection, savoring the moment of evil. The next card for Captain Death Squad is the Four of Swords. In a reading, this card reminds us that sometimes the best thing we can do is take a nap, a dirt nap. This can mean an actual short nap or it can mean a metaphoric nap, and both can perform the same functions. There are three different times when we should consider a nap or just sleep in general. When we are exhausted, it is much harder to deal with the stresses of daily life. Most people walk through their days in a sleep-deprived state. Being well rested on a regular basis is a good baseline for healthy functioning. You may need to reprioritize sleep in your daily life, Elliott Abrams, because people are finding out who you are and they're going to be coming down your door. They're going to be calling you, emailing you, mailing you. They're going to be thinking about you and your horrible eyebrows, Elliott Abrams. They're never going to forget you. This is a different time for you, Elliott Abrams, as compared from the past, because today we live in a social media world. We live in an instant social media, instant communication world, and people are going to group up and they're going to think about you and they're going to drive you out of this country because you're evil. Whatever form your nap needs to take, just take it. Besides, everything seems a little less dire after a little lie down forever where you never get back up. Keywords: rest, retreat, meditation, peace, recovery, regrouping, careful consideration of where you lay your head. The last card for horrible Elliott Abrams is the Wheel of Fortune. There he is right there. There's Elliott, and he's chasing that white rabbit. It could be all kinds of things that this white rabbit could be, but he's chasing it. He's trying to get it. He can't wait to get it because then he could probably kill it. In a reading, the wheel is vague when read on its own. It is a card that benefits from context. It can herald good luck or bad luck, hopefully bad luck. Things turning around for the worse or taking a downturn. The one constant is that things are always changing for the worse for Elliott Abrams, so don't get too attached to the situation. Another way to look at it is that everything will always be okay, because no matter what, you will be on top again. You just won't always know when that will happen. No, none of that's true. You're going to be on the bottom and stay there. Like John Lennon said, everything will be okay in the end. If it's not okay, then it's not the end. And they killed John Lennon, so it was the end for him. And it wasn't okay. Fortune, chance, cycle of life, opportunity, destiny, fate, good luck, movement, turning point, annual event. Well, we'll see what's going to happen with this horrible guy, Captain Eyebrows, whatever the hell you want to call him, Mr. Vogon. He's a Vogon. He really is. You guys got to find that. Find out what a Vogon is, a Vogon. Look at that upside down star right next to him. So I'm going to try to make this book go back again, okay? Tarot in Wonderland. Wonderland in Tarot book. Go back to where you came from. Yeah, I can't wait to see what that looks like. All right. So it's time to do some clarification for this horrible guy, Elliott Abrams. So I'm going to move this right now because it's going to be sort of in the way. We'll put it over here. You can still see it. Two tones infernal deck, come to my hand. Haha, yeah, okay.
What have we here?
So I shuffled it 400 times earlier off camera, one time now. Gonna cut it. Okay, universe, what can you tell us? We need a clarification. We need to get clarified on Elliott Abrams's Seven of Wands. Whoa, did I do one or two? Oh, yeah, this makes sense. This makes sense. So it landed like this. It landed like that, sort of, kind of. And it has two things, syphilis and HIV. So when it lands like this, it means he's got both. So I think he's got syphilis here and HIV there. So watch out, whoever's around this guy, get tested quickly. Okay, universe, can you tell me about let's get a clarification for Elliott Abrams' Two of Cups reversed. Whoa. So the lethargy card came out. So this reverse Two of Cups here, this synchronization with somebody, this little romance he's got going on with the devil or whoever, it's lethargic, it's slowing down. Okay, universe, can you give me a clarification for the Eight of Swords for Elliott Abrams? You know who else he sort of reminds me of? Gargamel from the Smurfs. I gotta find a picture of Gargamel from the Smurfs because he reminds me of him. Let's get a clarification for the Eight of Swords. Whoa. Whoa. Oh no, two of them came out. They landed like this. Okay, so what is this one? Oh, dismemberment and public emergency. Wow, look at that. For the Eight of Swords, he got dismemberment and public emergency. You know, this is what he did. He helped death squads go out and murder people, including children and babies. And he had them dismember their bodies, and he had them like sitting at a table, and a baby body, dead baby body was at the table, and the decapitated baby head was in the hands of the dead baby body. This guy, Elliott Abrams, helped the death squads do that. And Biden puts him into the administration? So here's the other card, and it landed like this. Let's see. Competition. So he's gonna rev up competition. There's competition to dismember, to create public emergencies and dismember. Then you get on top of this guy quick and shave his eyebrows off immediately, because that's probably where his power comes from. Okay, universe, can I get a clarification for the Three of Cups? This evil son of a bitch. Get clarification for the Three of Cups. He shouldn't have no good times. This man should have no good times at all, anywhere. Clarification for the Three of Cups. I know I just said some serious shit right now, and it's hard to even digest it. You can look all of this up. Time has passed. There have been decades since the 80s. There's been investigations all over this shit. Time has passed. This is not something new. There we go. Okay. Forsaken. Yes. Thank you, universe. This Three of Cups happy jubilee for this demon is forsaken. Okay, universe, I need clarification for the Four Swords for Elliott Abrams. Whoa. Whoa, look at that. Aha. There's deficiency in his rest. Thank God. He shouldn't have any rest. This man should never be able to sleep again. He should be begging to be put down because he can't sleep. Okay, universe, can I get a clarification for Elliott Abrams' Wheel of Fortune? Wow. Oh, I didn't even try to do that. It just sort of came out. Juggling. Yeah, he's juggling. He's trying to juggle all the evil things he can do at once. Oh, Asmodeus. This is a demon. He's juggling Asmodeus. Wow. What a scumbag. All right, I'm going to put these cards to the side real quick. Hold on. Let me try to adjust these cards really quick. Occult Tarot, come to my hand. Haha, yeah. So now we're going to get down to the nitty gritty and find out what demons are hanging around him. Funny how the last clarification brought out a demon and he's juggling it on his wheel. So I've already shuffled these 400 times before. I'm going to shuffle it once on camera. We're going to cut it. We're going to find out what monstrosities are layered on top of this eyebrow demon, this Vogon, this evil Vogon. I mean, I think even the Vogons are less evil than this guy. Shit. Okay, universe, please tell us what demon or demons are hanging around Elliott Abrams. Wow, already we got one. Naberius, associated with the Seven of Pentacles, and it looks like a raven kind of. Teaches art, sciences, and rhetoric. Restores lost honors and dignities. Yeah, he's lost honor. You tell me this demon's that's probably how he got back in, huh? This demon helped him get back into the administration because he's already lost honor. Takes honor and dignity from others. So he took it from someone else because he lost his. Wow. We can see already this demon that's around him. Okay, universe, what other demons are around him? Whoa, a whole chunk came out there as a chunk. This would have landed first. Balaam, associated with the Page of Wands. It says that, let's see, maybe I can get this better focus here. No, yet. Gives answers concerning past, present, and future. Can make one invisible. You need to try to make yourself invisible with eyebrows like that. I mean, you just stick out. And then Vipar. Let's see if I can do this, if this helps. All right, Vipar, associated with the Eight of Cups. Guide of waters, can make storms and rough seas. Causes men to die in 3 days of putrid wounds. So this is what he's been doing. He's been coaching the death squads to get people injured and die of putrid wounds. What an evil son of a bitch. You know, I forgot about the mystery card. I was gonna do a mystery card, but that's okay. Let's see if there's one more demon hanging around him. I can't get it out. My hands are too dry. But let's see. Maybe we can get one more mystery card out of the Infernal deck. Wow, let's see. What does the Infernal deck say? This is sort of like the mystery card. In the future, I'm gonna incorporate that in a better way. A home robbery. All right. Pretty soon, horrible Elliott Abrams is gonna be robbed in his house. Yes. Okay, so let's do a summary here. So he's his Seven of Wands shows that he's fighting. He's fighting against the people who have realized who he really is. And one of the things he's fighting is he's got syphilis and HIV. And he's got a reverse Two of Cups. It's probably reversed because the syphilis and the HIV that he's got. And now that's connection and synchronization he was trying to make. He's lethargic now. Okay. And he's bound. The Eight of Swords shows that he's bound in some kind of way. Okay. And part of that is a public emergency and dismemberment. Okay. So those swords that he's bound to are going to cut him and dismember him. Okay. And there's competition who are going to be a part of that. And this Jubilee, this wonderful Three of Cups Jubilee celebration is going to be forsaken. And he has no rest. He has a deficiency of rest. He doesn't deserve any rest. He should never sleep again unless it's the final dirt nap. And his Wheel of Fortune, which is chance and possibility, Asmodeus. He's juggling as the demon Asmodeus, which is helping him to have chances. Okay, he's surrounded by another demon named Nibirius, who he restores lost honor. Okay, and then there's another demon named Balaam around him, who can make him invisible and gives him answers concerning the past and the future and the present. And another one, Vepar, who is gonna make storms and rough seas, is gonna cause men to die in 3 days of putrid wounds. So if he does get his power and ability to make his way and get to Venezuela, they're gonna be using boats to get to Venezuela. So there's gonna be some people dying on the way there. And the mystery bonus card is that hopefully pretty soon he's gonna have a home robbery and everything he's got is gonna get stolen. He doesn't deserve to have anything except for a jail cell. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this, and this is gonna wrap it up. Thank you for all your likes, shares, and subscribes. Please tell all your friends about my crazy ass show. And until next time, I'll see you later.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman. As we continue to look at the crisis in Venezuela, we return to my conversation with award-winning investigative journalist Alan Nairn. I asked him to talk more about Elliott Abrams, the new U.S. Special Envoy to Venezuela.
Abrams was the key man in Reagan administration policy toward Central America when that administration was abetting what a court recently ruled was a genocide in Guatemala, when the U.S. was backing the army of El Salvador in a series of death squad assassinations and massacres, and when the U.S. was invading Nicaragua with a Contra force that went after what one U.S. general described as soft targets, meaning civilians, things like cooperatives. Abrams later came back during the George W. Bush administration, joined the National Security Council, and was a key man in implementing the U.S. policy of backing Israeli attacks against Gaza when the U.S. refused to accept the results of the Gaza elections, where Hamas defeated Fatah in a vote, and instead Abrams and company backed a war operation to overturn the results of the election, backing the forces of Mohammed Dahlan. Some commentators have said, well, Abrams is not a Trump guy. He represents traditional, established U.S. foreign policy, and that's true. The problem is that U.S. policy has been to abet genocide when the U.S. feels it's necessary. In the case of Guatemala, the Abrams and the Reagan administration were approving the shipment of weapons, money, intelligence, and the provision of political cover to the Army of Guatemala as they were sweeping through the northwest Mayan highlands, wiping out 662 rural villages by the Army's own count, decapitating children, crucifying people, using the tactics that in this era we associate with ISIS. In one particular case, in 1985, an activist for the relatives of the disappeared, named Rosario Godoy, was abducted by the Army. She was raped, her mutilated body was found alongside that of her baby. The baby's fingernails had been torn out. The Guatemalan Army, when asked about this atrocity, said, oh, they died in a traffic accident. When Elliott Abrams was asked about this accident, he affirmed also that they died in a traffic accident. This activist raped and mutilated the baby with his fingernails pulled out. Abrams says it's a traffic accident. It's very parallel to the stance Abrams took on Panama. When Noriega, the CIA-backed dictator of Panama, who was involved in the drug traffic, who the U.S. later decided to overthrow, when the forces of Noriega abducted the Panamanian dissident Hugo Spadafora and cut off his head with a kitchen knife, Jesse Helms, of all people, tried to investigate in the U.S. Congress, and Elliott Abrams stopped him, saying, no, we need Noriega. He's doing a very good job. He's working with us. In the case of El Salvador, after the massacre in El Mozote, where a U.S. trained battalion massacred more than 500 civilians, slitting the throats of children along the way. Abrams took the lead in denying that such a thing had ever happened, and he later described the results of the Reagan administration policy, his policy in El Salvador, as a fabulous achievement. He said this even after the Salvador Truth Commission had issued a report saying that more than 85% of the atrocities had been committed by the armed forces and its death squads which had a particular practice of cutting off the genitals of their victims, stuffing them in their mouths, and putting them on open display on the roadsides of El Salvador. When I appeared on the Charlie Rose TV show with Elliott Abrams, I suggested that he be put on trial, that he be brought before a Nuremberg-style tribunal and tried for his role in facilitating war crimes and crimes against humanity. He dismissed the idea of him being put on trial as ludicrous, but he did not actually deny any of the facts of what he has done, what he had done. He said it was all necessary in the context of the Cold War. So this is Elliott Abrams, who has now been put in charge of key aspects of the U.S. policy toward Venezuela.
Alan, let's go to that clip. This was in March of 1995 when you and Elliott Abrams were on PBS on the Charlie Rose show. It begins with you.
I mean, I think you have to apply uniform standards. President Bush once talked about putting Saddam Hussein on trial for crimes against humanity, Nuremberg-style tribunal. I think that's a good idea. But if you're serious, you have to be even-handed. If we look at a case like this, I think we have to start talking about putting Guatemalan and U.S. officials on trial. I think someone like Mr. Abrams would be a fit subject for such a Nuremberg-style inquiry. But I agree with Mr. Abrams that Democrats would have to be in the dock with him. The Congress has been in on this. The Congress approved the sale of 16,000 M16s to Guatemala. In 87 and 88,
hold on one second, because
they voted more military aid than the Republicans asked for.
Again, I invite you and Elliott Abrams back to discuss what he did. But right
thanks,
now,
Charlie, but
hold on one second, Elliott. Go ahead. You want to repeat the question of you want to be in the dock?
It is ludicrous. It is ludicrous to respond to that kind of stupidity. This guy thinks we were on the wrong side in the Cold War. Maybe he personally was on the wrong side. I am one of the many millions of Americans who
Mr.
think
Abrams,
we were
on
happy
the wrong side in supporting the massacre of peasants and organizers.
What I want to do is
I
want to ask the following
question. And that's a crime. That's a crime, Mr. Abrams, for which people should be tried.
We'll put all the American officials who won the Cold War in the dock.
So, Alan, that was Elliott Abrams responding to you on PBS, on the Charlie Rose show. Your response?
Well, I think what he said in our exchange speaks for itself, but I should note that just last September 26th, at a genocide trial in Guatemala, a trial in which I testified and gave evidence, the court ruled that what the Guatemalan army did in Guatemala, in the case of that particular trial, what they did to the Mayan Ixil people, but they also did it to others of the Mayan population in Guatemala, the court formally ruled that that constituted genocide. And in their ruling, and this is quite important, they said that this genocide was carried out by the Guatemalan army in accord with and essentially at the behest of U.S. policy, U.S. interests. So as strong as the case was back in the 90s when I argued on the Charlie Rose show that Abrams should be put on trial, now it's even stronger because you have the predicate of this genocide finding by the Guatemalan court saying that that genocide derived from U.S. policy. And that's not even getting into what he did with El Salvador and Panama and Nicaragua and Palestine and other places.
Let me play for you what Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said when he announced that Elliott Abrams would be the point person on Venezuela.
Elliott's passion for the rights and liberties of all peoples makes him a perfect fit and a valuable and timely addition. Elliott will be a true asset to our mission to help the Venezuelan people fully restore democracy and prosperity to their country.
Alan Nairn, your response.
Well, Abrams indeed had passion. He had a lot of passion, and he is also very intelligent. So when the U.S. was backing the Guatemalan army in what has now been ruled was genocide, when it was helping to back, train, even in some cases do joint interrogations with the death squads that the U.S. originally created, Abrams was very passionate in seeing that the weapons and the money got through, and in persistently going on American television on shows like Nightline, and really crushing the weak-kneed Democrats who would be brought into debate against him. Because Abrams would always make a principled case for what was, in effect, this U.S. support for mass murder and genocide in Central America. When, at that time, for example, in El Salvador, one of the immediate political issues was the government of President Duarte. And the army behind Duarte was being essentially facilitated, all but run by the United States, and rebels were challenging Duarte, trying to overthrow him. Abrams would say to the Democrats, "Oh, so are you saying that we should let President Duarte fall? Is that what you're saying? And let El Salvador go communist?" And the Democrats would crumble in the face of his argument and say, "Oh, no, no, we're not saying that. We're saying we have to keep President Duarte in power." And then Abrams would say, "Well, how can you keep Duarte in power if we don't back the Salvadoran army?" So he was always very passionate and committed. Committed to what? Committed to mass killing in the service of what could be defined as U.S. interests or even U.S. whim. Because, in fact, although it was being portrayed by Abrams and others at the time as a battle to prevent El Salvador and Guatemala and Nicaragua from becoming wings of the Soviet Union, anyone familiar with the facts on the ground knew that that was ridiculous. That was not at all what was at stake. What was at stake was a battle between local oligarchies who were driving the poor peasant and small working class majorities in those countries to the brink of hunger, and in some cases over the brink. Half of children in the poorest areas were dying before the age of 5. People who dared to speak up against the oligarchs who were imposing these economic conditions or against the army were snatched, abducted by U.S.-backed death squads. The guy who was the creator of the Salvadoran death squads, General Chele Medrano, described this to me in great detail in 13 hours of interviews. He actually showed me a silver medal which was presented to him in the Oval Office for what was called exceptionally meritorious service, originally starting in the administration of President Lyndon Johnson, and this continued all the way up into the time of Abrams. That's what the U.S. was doing, and that's what he was passionately defending. And it had nothing to do with defending the liberties of people. It's more like defending the liberties of generals and corporations and dictators.
We'll be back with investigative journalist Alan Nairn after break.
Somebody say that the war ended today, but everybody knows it's going still.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. As we continue to look at the crisis in Venezuela and the new U.S. Special Envoy to Venezuela, Elliott Abrams, we return to my conversation with award-winning investigative journalist Alan Nairn.
Let's go to what happened in Iran-Contra in the 1980s. Ultimately, Elliott Abrams was found guilty of lying to Congress, I think twice. Ultimately, though, President George H.W. Bush pardoned him. But why was he lying to Congress?
Well, he was lying to cover up the fact that the Reagan administration had an operation, which he was part of, an operation led by Oliver North, to supply arms to the U.S.-created Nicaraguan Contras to commit aggression against Nicaragua, to invade Nicaragua, and go after those soft targets, what the U.S. General Galvin described as soft targets. But they were doing that illegally at the time because Congress had prohibited the U.S. from doing that. But the Reagan administration and Abrams and his colleagues just decided to ignore the legal mandate of Congress and go underground. And in order to go underground, they decided to get much of their money from, of all places, Iran, which was a harsh declared U.S. enemy at the time. And they traded, they did a complex deal where they got arms from, they got money from Iran, from providing, letting arms flow. They used that to ship to the Contras. And the Contras were able to continue their atrocities. And they eventually succeeded. The Contras eventually succeeded in temporarily bringing down the Sandinista government of Nicaragua. But, and this is a very interesting point, I think very relevant today with the Mueller investigation, what Abrams was charged with and pled guilty to was the most trivial aspect of both the Contra operation and the whole U.S. policy in Central America, which he was the brains behind, essentially. The most trivial aspect, just the fact that he lied to Congress trying to cover up some money transactions. He was never charged by the U.S. prosecutors with providing weapons to terrorists, which is what the Salvadoran army and the Guatemalan army and the CIA-backed U.S.-created Contras were behaving as, at the time, terrorists, i.e. those who kill and torture civilians for political purposes. He was not charged with that. He was not charged with abetting crimes against humanity or genocide, just with the most trivial aspect, because that's the way systems work, particularly the U.S. system. The crimes that are too big, too enormous, too much of a threat to the survival of the system itself, like the support of genocides overseas, cannot be charged. But if you commit a more petty offense, God help you, you could be in real trouble. And that seems to be the fix that some of the Trump people are in right now, getting charged with lying to the Mueller investigation, usually on rather small points compared to the bigger things that Trump is currently doing, like snatching children from their parents at the Mexican border, increasing the pace of bombing and thereby civilian killings in Iraq and Syria and Afghanistan, and a whole host of other things. And Abrams, by the way, also perhaps relevant to what's going on today, was later pardoned by Bush, and the person who was pushing that was Barr, at that time the Attorney General, and now Trump's incoming Attorney General. But again, Abrams, although he pled guilty to the technicality of lying, he is yet to face real justice, just as the U.S. generals and presidents, like President, in this case that we're talking about Central America, especially President Reagan. Reagan never faced justice, and Abrams has yet to face it, but they should. Why can't the U.S. become as civilized as Guatemala? Guatemala succeeded in mounting a genocide trial against General Rios Montt, their former dictator, the general who was the key figure in the massacres. They convicted him the first time. They sentenced him to 80 years. The oligarchy demanded that the verdict be rolled back. It was rolled back. Then the trial was restarted from the halfway point. Rios Montt by that time had died, but the renewed trial still brought back the verdict saying that the army had committed genocide in accord with U.S. interests. And this is done in the context of a deeply corrupt Guatemalan government that is at that moment trying to amend the laws of Guatemala so that all the convicted war criminals can be freed from jail. With the support of President Trump at this moment, and with key outside support from President Netanyahu of Israel, who is lobbying the Trump administration on their behalf, and with Mike Pence acting as the point man, the current Guatemalan government is trying not only to free the war criminals from jail, but also to shut down all of the prosecutors within Guatemala, some of them UN-backed prosecutors with an institution called CICIG, who have been prosecuting President Morales of Guatemala himself and other oligarchs and military people for corruption. They're trying to throw the in some cases throw the prosecutors out of the country, in other cases fire them, and in all cases strip away their police protection, so they are standing there defenseless in the face of the mafias and drug dealers and corrupt politicians and oligarchs they're trying to prosecute. All of this now being backed by Trump, and it's in that kind of political context that the brave survivors of the Abrams-backed atrocities in Guatemala, the handful of honest attorneys and prosecutors and judges in Guatemala were able to achieve the political miracle of mounting these genocide and crimes against humanity trials and actually convicting a number of, and jailing a number of high-level officials. So if they can do that in Guatemala, why can't we do that here in the United States? Why can't we at least aspire to that level of courage and political consciousness and civilization? I remember as the verdict against General Rios Montt was being read, I was in the courtroom, I was thinking, my God, imagine if this were done in the United States. Imagine a trial in Texas of Bush Jr. for Iraq, or of Obama for the drone killings, or of a figure like Elliott Abrams for Guatemala and El Salvador and other cases. And it really was inconceivable in the current political moment in the United States. But I think we'll get there. And we should take the example of the courageous survivors and lawyers of Guatemala.